Hi there, welcome to TDCat Tech. Today I'm looking at these. This is the Reolink Argus 3 Pro CCTV camera. It's a Wi-Fi CCTV camera and it's completely battery operated. It's designed to be used, if you like, completely out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't have to be connected to Wi-Fi because it also has a micro SD. So it can also be used with this solar panel, which can keep it topped up, keep it charged. Here's the camera. And as I say, yeah, it's a battery-operated Wi-Fi camera. It operates on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. It's got a 4 megapixel sensor in here, so considerably more than full HD, which is 1920 by 1080. This is at 2560 by 1440, so otherwise known as Quad HD, which is almost twice, if you actually do the maths on this, it's almost twice the number of pixels as full HD, so 1920 by 1080. So decent resolution, particularly for a battery camera. It's got smart motion detection on this, which is, I mean, loads of people throw the word smart around these days with all sorts of kind of AI type things. But what this basically means is that you have three settings. You can either try and detect everything, you can try and detect just vehicles, you can try and detect just people, or a combination of all three. It just means that you are supposedly going to get fewer false positives when you're detecting motion. And that's really important with a battery camera because this thing only powers up when it detects something. It's not, it's battery. It's not going to be recording all the time. So the amount of false positives makes a big difference to the battery life, potentially. It's got infrared LEDs. It's got 6 infrared LEDs on this, so not as powerful as a powered camera would be. It's not going to reach as far with the infrared LEDs. And it's also got these 2 really super bright spotlights at the top here, these LED spotlights, which you can use to come on and light the scene so that you can get a full, decent full color scene. First of all, you get the camera itself. You get this stand, which just fits to the wall, but it also has a little kind of section in the back here you can see, which allows this strap to fit round. And the reason they provide it with a strap is so you can fit this to, like, I don't know, a pole or a tree or something like that. So this type of camera, not this type of camera, this type of camera is often used for kind of detecting wildlife or something like that. So you might use it you might stick at the end of your garden or down, just to kind of detect when certain animals come and do stuff or whatever. People use these for things other than just CCTV and home security. And you also get a micro USB cable because the camera is charged via USB and can be powered via USB as well, if you like. So you get this micro USB cable. And you also get this little stand, which is pretty basic, but it works nicely. It's got these 2 little kind of rubber pads there. And all the idea of this is if you do want to mount it inside, you just slot it on the stand like that. First of all, we've got the lens on the front here, which you can see. There's a nice 4 megapixel sensor behind there, as I mentioned, 2560 by 1440. And then we have the 2 spotlights here at the top. And then we've got the actual motion, detect the PIR motion sensor here, which is then put through the kind of smart AI engine to detect what's actually being detected and decide whether the camera powers up or not. On the bottom, we have a power switch, and then we have a micro SD card slot, and I've got a 128 gigabyte card in there at the moment. And the camera is, of course, sealed with all these rubber ports. This is designed to be put outside. It can be put outside, can be left in the rain, not a problem, as long as you get these ports sort of sealed with the rubber squidgy stuff, which is nice, actually. It fits really nicely on there. And round the back, we have the little sort of output there for a little open section, because this also has a siren on it as well, which can sound when it detects motion if you want it to. It's not terribly loud, but it's certainly enough to kind of put someone off, I think, and make someone think, I don't really want to be around here with a siren like that running. And then we've got a 1/4-20 thread there, which fits to the stand. And then at the back, we have another sealed port, which has the micro USB connector on. And when you use this with the solar panel itself has a sealed micro USB connector there, and it just literally connects in there like that. Push the rubber in place, and you've got a nice sealed port. Taking a quick look at the solar panel now. It's not particularly big. You kind of think to yourself, is this going to do the job? And again, I will get onto that in a second, but it says the maximum output is 6 volts with a power of 3.2 watts. So it's not a huge output, but it doesn't really need to be. The idea is it's just going to keep it charged. It's not going to power the camera. It's just going to gently keep charging the battery when the camera's not actually in use, and hopefully just be enough to keep the battery topped up. And then this also has a 1/4-20 screw on as well, because you can use the stand. There's also a stand that comes with the solar panel, which I don't have with me right at this moment in time. And that can mount on the wall, and you can then position the solar panel in the best possible way to get the most sun, I guess. And more importantly, it comes with an incredibly long cable. And that's really important, because a lot of the time, the camera is going to want to be in a different place to the solar panel, because yeah, the camera might be sort of near your front door, but that might not be a place where you get much sun, so you can then extend it out and put it somewhere where you might maybe get just a bit more sun, let it get a bit more charge. I don't want to get into too much detail on the app in this particular video, but I will take you through it very quickly. So the camera's off at the moment, so I'm going to just turn this on quickly using the switch at the bottom. Now, usually you would, of course, leave this on all the time, and hopefully the solar panel will either be doing its thing and keeping it topped up, or you will have it connected to a USB power supply. So I'm just going to let that start up. Hopefully it will do that fairly quickly, and I'll just point that towards the back there. So the actual camera, that is actually called the Garden here in this case, because this is the shot that I had previously when I was testing it. But let's just see if it'll now connect up. There we go. It's connected straight away. First thing you've got is the ability to sound the siren here across the top. You can just turn that on, and that fires the little speaker here at the back, and you can sound that immediately. Or we can turn the spotlights on if we want. There we go. Just turn the spotlights on. I'll show you, I'll give you an idea of how bright they are. I hold those up to the camera. Seriously, they do an amazing job. Really impressed with how well they work, and you can turn those off. So of course that you can turn those on manually, but you can get in the settings, change that to change the spotlights to come on whenever someone's anywhere near. And that will just displays multiple cameras at once. And then we've just got different settings here around snapshot, and then resolution wise, there's only 2 resolutions on this camera. Often you have three resolutions on the Reolink cameras. You have a fluent, which is a really low resolution setting. Then you have a balanced one in between, which is sort of midway between the two. 4 megapixel, which is the full resolution version in this particular case. So if I just switch to fluent there, you can see that you might not be able to, hopefully you can read that. You might be able to read that. The bit rate's dropped right down now to 280 kilobits per second, whereas on 4 megapixel, it demands quite a bit more bandwidth, and we're up at about 2.73 megabit, 3.1 megabits per second. So quite a bit of data that. So that's why it gives you the option to do either. If you want to take a snapshot, just hit there, takes a snapshot, saves it to your camera roll. Same with the video, just press it. Just carries on running, and then press it again to stop. You can full screen it, hold it here to the side, and it gives you a full screen version. Yeah, there are fewer options around here. So we have the option to talk through the camera to someone. You can do a standard clip where you choose an area of the image that you want to zoom in on, and then you can just move it around with your finger like that. So that reduces the actual bandwidth that's being used, because it's effectively like zooming in and doing a crop on the sensor. Then we have playback, which of course lists all the videos where alarms have taken place. So in this case, it's set to alarm at this time. So because I'm moving it around, it's fired and it's recorded a clip for me here. So I can go back into here now and I can play that clip back. And that's what I'm doing here, playing the clip back, and I can download it here. So I can go into the download section, say, yep, this is the 22-second clip that I want to download in fluent quality, and download it, no problem. And then I can also go out of playback now, out of playback here, go back into Garden, I'll take you through the settings quickly as well. Appreciate you can't see this too well on here. And then go into the settings. So we've got the camera at the top here, what type of camera it is, what the status of the battery is, and this gives you all the information as to how much battery has been used, whether it's currently charging with the solar panel, whether it's currently powered by a power supply, whatever. It gives you all information on the charging there in that section. And then we have the network information. Then under the display section, you've got the ability to rotate the screen, change the quality settings, change the resolution. Well, in fact, in this camera, you can't, I don't think, no, you can only have the one set resolution of 2560 by 1440, but you can change the frame rate and you can change the bit rate. So if you do want to reduce that 3 megabit per second bit rate down a bit, sacrifice image quality, but you can do it. And then the same for the fluent one as well. Anti-flicker, 50 Hertz because I'm in the UK, day and night mode, auto, select scene, well, it just depends whether you're using the camera outdoor or indoor. Select the brightness of the camera, give the camera a name, where you put the date, the watermark, and you can set a privacy mask as well, so you can block off a certain part of the image. And then we have the PIR motion sensor settings. They just turn it on there and you have a sensitivity setting. And then we also have in here the camera recording settings as well. So we can turn camera recording on. We can schedule it really nice and easily. So I can go in here and I can just set a certain day like this and go through and say, right, I want to add an extra hour to here. So I'm going to just add an hour there, enable that, copy it to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that is it. So we now have an extra hour of recording. And then we have the smart detection type at the top here. So it says, are you detecting a person, a vehicle, or others? So if you want it just to detect everything, you just select others. But if you only want to select a person, it means that all the kind of stuff that happens, like trees swinging or washing moving or something like that, won't cause a false detection. So really good in that case. And no, I don't want to save that. And then we have how much you record once it's fired, 15 seconds in this case, but you can increase that to 30-second max. You can usually do that more on their non-battery cameras, but on these, obviously, it's limited again just to save power because it has to save power. Then you've got push notifications to send you a text message and email alerts and not text message, you know what I mean, just a notification on your phone. And then you've got the siren settings. Then you can share the camera. You can do a time-lapse feature as well. I'm not going to do that now, but yeah, they've added a time-lapse feature. A bit weird for a CCTV camera. I don't think it's really necessary. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like putting an ice cream maker in a car or something like that. It's kind of nice to have, but I'm not sure anyone who gets a security camera really wants to use it. And then we have the advanced settings around whether you record audio, where you get your date and time from. So is it from the phone, device password, infrared lights, which can, you can disable those entirely, have them stay off, but they'll only come on when the camera's fired anyway, because of course, again, batteries, same with the spotlight, have it auto on for live view, night mode, and that's about it. So it's missing some key settings, and I really do sort of miss stuff like FTP, and unfortunately the cloud settings for this, you can't use it in the UK. So really this camera, although it is absolutely great, the fact that you can't, one, FTP stuff, or two, send stuff to the cloud because it doesn't work in the UK yet. Come on, Reolink, sort that out. It means that in some ways it's kind of useless because all someone has to do is physically take the camera and they've got everything. They've got all the data because it's all on the micro SD. So you can store it on the micro SD here, but other than that, it's completely, it's all gone because you can't get it unless you go into your phone and download the clip. You can't get the clip any other way. Whereas it should be able to send it to the cloud and get rid of it, get it off-site, and you're sorted. Or at least enable FTP on it. So there we go. Quick look around the software. Hope that helps. Okay, so let's talk about the things I like about this camera. First of all, the image quality is excellent. The color is superb and the detail is superb. I've used 4K cameras, and compared to a 4K camera, okay, maybe it's not quite as good, but if you zoom in on this image in the app, if you kind of just pinch and zoom in the app, the detail is remarkable. Good sensor, good color, reliable exposure. I really can't fault the image quality on this camera compared to others. It has its downsides around exposure and things. So at nighttime, You get issues maybe where the person might be overexposed because the infrared LEDs are on their face and stuff, so you can't actually see the detail in the face. That kind of thing happens, I find, on pretty much all CCTV cameras. But again, that's a benefit of having the spotlights. So if you have the spotlights come on, they can light up the person and they can light up the scene, and you can get just a normal colour scene then. And moving on to the spotlights as a pro, these things are incredible. It's like battery powered, and it's just these two little LEDs, but they are bright. Honestly, I'll just show you a clip here of them lighting up our admittedly small backyard on our house. I mean, we don't have a big space in the back of our house. And it just lights it up, and the whole area is a decent colour image as a result of these two tiny little spotlights. They are really good. If you've got a huge garden, or you've got a massive big forecourt on your house, of course they're not going to do the job in that sense, in that situation. But they're good enough, and they do provide a surprising amount of light. The build quality of this camera is excellent. It feels great in the hand. It's solidly built. There's no rattle, no creaking parts, no rattling parts. Everything, all the seals feel nice to put on. It's just a really nicely built product. I guess it's only going to sit there and, not necessarily, might not matter that much, but again, it just gives you confidence in the product when it feels really nicely built. The fact, of course, that this can be used completely independently is a huge bonus. Anywhere. You can use it anywhere. You could potentially connect it to a mobile phone or something like that and have it totally, actually transmitting images completely independently. But yeah, the fact that this can be just dumped anywhere for recording, whether it be wildlife, whether it be people, whether it be whatever, and then you can come back to it the next day, check what's on the micro SD card, is just fantastic. It's really good. And the battery life, I'll get onto the battery life here, is surprisingly good. I thought this would last like a couple of days, but if you're in a situation where you're not getting too much motion detection during the day, not constant people walking past as we would have at the front of our house, then this will last, I would say it will last weeks, possibly like a month on one battery charge, because I've had the battery be activated continuously during the day. Like people walking past the house, maybe over 100 activations during the day, and the battery's kind of dropped 10%, so that suggests that maybe it'll last 10 days, even with that level of activation happening. Really good battery life. And the smart detection, well, it works well. Yeah, I mean, it does its job. It tells you what it's detecting, and I had it running last night, and it had 3 detections at night. I think one was at 1 in the morning, one was at 3, and one was at 5. And they were all people walking past, whatever they were doing that time of night. One person looked a little bit drunk. Not surprising at 3 in the morning. But yeah, it detected the people, didn't detect anything else. So yeah, I think it works pretty well. And finally, of course, it's USB powered and is rechargeable. So if you want to just plug this in and use this on USB power permanently, you can. If you want to use it on a power bank, you can. If you want to charge it up and use it on the battery for a bit, you can. The fact it's USB powered gives you many more options compared to other Reolink cameras that have the barrel connector on, and therefore is just a bit more awkward to power over USB. This just has a standard micro USB in the back to charge the battery, and that's it. Okay, so what about the bad points of this camera? Well, as a battery-powered camera, it has to have aggressive power saving on it. It has to basically shut down as much as it possibly can until it has to have some kind of detection going all the time. But when it detects something, it has to then power up, and it has to fire up the infrared LEDs. It has to get its exposure. It has to start recording, do all that in as short a time as it possibly can. It doesn't always manage to do it. And I found that some of the clips I've had where I've had it pointed down the street and you get people walking up the street, it then only comes in when they're almost walking past. They've almost walked past. So if I wanted to ID that person, then it's not really going to be much use for that. If you're talking about someone approaching the camera, it's much better. And I would certainly think that Reolink themselves would say mount it somewhere where it's going to be someone, the situation where you're going to want to ID someone would be somebody approaching the camera, because otherwise you're going to get that happening where the camera simply hasn't powered up in time to be able to video and capture footage of the person, fully walking past. So the bit that's important when they're a bit further down the street and they've just come into frame, where you can see the face and you can see the front of the body, it doesn't always get that. And they're nearly past by the time it's actually started capturing. So you've got to really consider that and where you can mount the camera and how you want to use a camera like this to see whether or not it's suitable for you, because it does have that aggressive power saving to be able to allow it to have a decent battery life, I suppose. Secondly, because of it having a battery, it has a limited feature set in the app. Compared to the video that I did on the E1 Zoom, which uses the same app essentially, it just has some cutback features. So this camera can't send any files to an FTP server. That's a bit of a shame. It doesn't have all the kind of 3D noise, the noise reduction, the image settings. There's just a bunch of features that are missing from the app when you use it with this camera. Again, probably because of the fact it's battery and it just doesn't support all those features. That's a bit of a shame, because when you plug it into USB, when you actually plug it into a charger, you can see that. It actually tells you that in the on the screen. It'll say, oh look, I've detected that it's now plugged into power. And I was really hoping that at that point it would just come back with a bunch of extra features, just purely because it's plugged in to USB, but it doesn't. And so you're left. It'd be lovely if somehow in firmware they could say, right, here's our feature set when it's plugged in, here's our feature set on battery. So just allow FTP, if you want to use this just internally on its stand, like that, just want to use it as a camera inside on its stand, and you want to send it to an FTP server internally, a NAS, or even externally, it'd be nice to have those features still available on this camera. Again, with the aggressive power saving, the camera can be a little bit hit and miss to connect to. And I find this with all Wi-Fi cameras. Sometimes you go on the app and you try and connect to them and it just says, oh, connection failed. And with credit to Reolink, their cameras are the best at sorting out the problem, really. They will always come back. Some cameras I've used in the past and tested in the past, they have this problem where you can't connect to them, but then they're just dead. You have to literally reboot them, go up to them, take the power out, put the power back in. The Reolink cameras will always come back. But I do find that it's a little bit more hit and miss with this camera. Sometimes you go to it and probably because of the power saving, just doesn't quite do it first time. And so you want to see what's happening somewhere. It doesn't connect. You're like, that's annoying. So you then have to go out and come back in maybe a minute later and it'll work perfectly first time. Little bit more hit and miss than I'm used to with the other Reolink cameras that I've got. And finally, for the bad points, it seems to have this issue whereby it is activated too much of the time. So let me give you a scenario here. I've turned off push notifications. I've turned off email notifications. The only thing I've got the camera set to do is record. You can record on a schedule. The motion detection has to be on all the time. You can't just turn that off, otherwise nothing will work. So that has to be on. But then you set the schedule for the recording, and let's say it's set from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. Well, that's fine. So anything between 10 at night and 6 in the morning will activate the camera, will activate the infrared LEDs, and will effectively use the power on the camera. What I've found is that the camera is powering up even outside those scheduled times. It's like as if it's doing everything that it's doing things that it doesn't need to do because it's outside of a scheduled time. It's hard to explain this one. So we had some people around in the garden the other day, and it was outside a scheduled time, but the camera was there. And because there were loads of people moving around all the time, I went back to look at the activity on the camera, and it said, well, the camera's been powered up for something like 249 minutes today. It's like, what? Why? It didn't need to be, because it was outside of the recording schedule. There were no push notifications happening. Sure, the motion sensor was still going, but it says specifically in the app that this is only giving you information of when the camera is activated and when it's recording because of some activity. And I just think if it's going to have to activate based on, just people walking past or just people moving, even outside of a scheduled time, then it's just going to really use too much of the battery. So I don't know if that's a bug, I don't know if it's by design, but it doesn't really work too well in that case, because otherwise the battery's going to be dead within about 4 days if you've got a lot of activity. So if I wanted to use it outside the front of the house, I could say, well, I only want to record at nighttime. I only actually want to have anything happening on the camera at nighttime. But if it's going to get all the kind of people coming past during the school run, during the day, the people working in the street, whatever it might be, then the battery's going to be just used way too much and it's not going to work. I need that scheduled time when it's off to be real proper downtime on the camera, but that doesn't work quite right at the moment on the Argus 3 Pro. Not quite sure why. Maybe it's something that can be fixed in firmware. Maybe it's by design and I'm just not quite using it right. Not sure on that, but that is a problem that I have found. And yeah, it hasn't been a massive problem because I've been using it largely out of the back of the house, but I think in the front it would be a problem for me. And finally, I want to talk about the solar power. So when I started using this camera, I thought to myself, how is this going to work? Because is this going to provide enough power to keep it charged? And I've done tests, I've tried it in the back, I've tried it in the front, I've tried it at different times, I've tried it in sun, not in sun. The simple answer is, I have no idea. Based on your situation, I don't know. If you get sun, yes, it can keep the battery topped up and it does charge it. Absolutely. I've even managed to charge it through a window. It even can charge a little bit when there's no sun, but it's bright daylight. My concern is that I want to use this out the front of the house, and in the winter, the front of the house, because of where it rises and where it sets, gets no sun at all. And obviously it's going to be much less daylight, and I don't think that's going to be enough, but I just don't know. I haven't had the chance to test it in winter. It's a really fun camera to use, and security-wise, if you get it set up right, it can definitely do its job too. But would certainly recommend this one, the Reolink Argus 3 Pro. A couple of little niggles that they maybe need to sort out, but apart from that, it's a solid camera, nice image quality. You could definitely do worse.